Well, hello there, YouTube. It's Monday, July 15th, 2024. And in this video, I will diagnose why this engine did not run in the live stream. Well, it did kind of run, right? If anybody remembers, or if you have not already seen it, I did a live stream, and in that live stream was the first start. And in that live stream, 2 hours in, because we had to do a bunch of things, but 2 hours in, we got it started. But it only ran for a few seconds and died, but it was really hard to start. And there was a bunch of suggestions and everything during the live stream of things that I should do. And so I took all that stuff into consideration. There's a couple that were close, others that were way off, but this video I will share with you exactly what I discovered. You'll notice it took me a week to make this video. It took me all week, it did. Not that the diagnostic is that difficult, it's just that it's 118 to 115 every single day, and the nights are not below 90. So I really can't get my garage cooled down. It's just too big of a space for a little small air conditioner, a little portable thing that I have. Before I begin this video and show you what I discovered, I want to put a shout out to my buddy David Speck, right? He was the one that kind of hosted this thing and had things going. You know, I don't think he offended anybody out there. You know, he's playing with everybody, and it was a lot of fun. I even went back and I watched it a couple of times. You know, not just for that. I watched it for your comments. You know, it was important for me. Some of those comments I couldn't see, right? I'm busy working. So I looked at all the things, the suggestions and all that, like I said, and this is it. So again, I want to thank my buddy Dave and, you know, Pet Nation and Matthew and Jerry and, you know, Karen, you know, all you guys. I really appreciate the activity that we had going during the live stream. It was a lot of fun. And I would have even done something like this in a live stream, but you can tell the sound quality is better, and you know, I don't have the air conditioner on. That's the whole thing. I have everything shut off, and I'm just doing this. So I think you'll be impressed with the quality of this video and the diagnostic process. So without further ado, let's get this video going. So in the live stream first start, everyone thought that this vehicle was starving for fuel. And I somewhat agree that it felt that way. There's no doubt about it. And people said, start adjusting this screw. You know, make it richer. Well, before we start turning screws, because I can tell you what, I even have a buddy of mine whose son purchased a vehicle and it wasn't running right, and they told him to start turning the mixture screws. Right now, the vehicle doesn't run at all, and he's turned every single screw in there. So what you need to really do is you have to see where you are. You have to have a baseline, right? So what do? Well, you guys know that the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the manual and see what the manual has to say. You know, let's check first, you know, the position of the plate. That's the first thing we should check. Make sure that we have the proper position and make sure that we have the proper clearance from the piston. So I read the manual, and I read it many times. As a matter of fact, I already knew that I was going to have a problem with this fuel distributor. I knew it. I said it in the very beginning that this will be the problem, because if you look at all the forums and everything else, the number one question is my car won't start, or it doesn't run right. It's all about the KE-Jetronics. But when they're running properly, these things are great. So that's what we need to do. Let's find a baseline. I pulled up the manual. Now, besides manuals, I have people that I respect out there that work on these cars, and so I wanted to see what they have to say about these initial settings. We started off with Pierre. If you guys aren't familiar, matter of fact, all of these, I have a link to every single one of these videos in the description. But we have Pierre at the top. You're all familiar with Pierre. And then we have my buddy over here. He has a whole list of R107s that he's dubbed in English. And, you know, he's great. All right, so you should see him. He's the only one in this bunch that actually did all this on the vehicle. Okay, as a matter of fact, he gave all the different measurements that he made. And then my buddy Iveka from Fixture Mercedes, you know, his whole channel just specializes in the KE-Jetronics. Well, he also talks about the KE-Jetronics as well, but this is pretty much his main thing. With Pierre, he says that we want to check our free play. The free play is how much before this plate at its resting position, how much you depress this before it engages the piston that is on your fuel distributor. That's how fuel is delivered. When it's at the resting position and your fuel pumps are on, no fuel will be delivered. Only time the fuel is delivered, it's metered through this, all right? And a bunch of other stuff. But this is basically how it works. This thing here allows so much fuel to enter, okay? And then he says that you test this first without pressure. Here's an excerpt from his video so you guys can hear for yourself what he says.
On cars with Bosch KE-Jetronic injection, before you hit pressure, see the fuel distributor pushes down on this central plunger right here where my finger is. But before you hit pressure, this thing should have 3 millimeters of free play. If you, well, between 1 and 3 millimeters of free play. If you don't know how much that is, then you can use a depth caliper right here on the lip. But basically, this pushing all the way down is 0 free play, and then that's about 3 millimeters.
So that's the way that Pierre does it. Now the other two don't do it that way. They pressurize the system first. Well, let me show you what happens if we don't pressurize the system. This is the resting position. And you can see I've got, it's actually sitting perfectly if we look at the manual. Here's what the manual says. You check your 0 position, right? The upper edge of the sensor plate must be flush with the upper edge of the cylindrical part, where the arrow is. Do you see the arrow? A higher position of 0.2 millimeters is permissible. So we're at the top of that lip right there. Now, there's no pressure in the system as of now. So when I try to press this down to see when it hits that piston, I really can't tell. It's impossible for me to tell, I'll tell you. If you guys try it, turn your vehicle off, let it set overnight so there's no pressure, and try to do that. So I don't know how you would do that, but I think, you know, either he just kind of misspoke or I misunderstood. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pressurize the fuel system. So the way that I'm going to do that is exactly how Mercedes R107 does it, and that's what he does is turn on the ignition, engage the pumps for 20 seconds, turn it off, redo it for 20 seconds, turn it off, another 20 seconds, and then we can go ahead and turn it off. So now, actually, when you go to depress this, it has resistance right there. So that's the gap. All of these have a little bit different number and a different method of measuring. Pierre measures the lip closest to that right there. He doesn't measure in the center. The other two measure this. And the first measurement that Mercedes R107 does is this measurement from the top to that plate. And his measurement is 30.05 to 30.5. So let's measure ours, and I'll measure the same thing. I'm just going to use this and the depth. So he says it's about 30, so I'm going to start around 29, see if I'm anywhere close. So there you are. And now I will try to find the plate. And that comes out to 30.47. So if his measurements are correct, then I'm within that boundary right there. So I'd say that that part is correct. You can see where that lip is. All right. I'm gonna measure both ways, guys. I'm gonna measure this so you guys know whatever heck that measurement is, as well as this in the back side here. So I'm gonna measure this side like Pierre and how I believe the manual wants you to measure. You know, I think Pierre's right. He might be a little bit off on, you know, he says 1 to 3 millimeters of play, right? But you know, that's his experience. You know, he's worked on these all, you know, for many, many years. So between 1 and 3. And guess what? 1 to 2 is between 1 and 3. Same thing with Mercedes R107. You know, he has 1.1 to 1.5 is the travel. And then we have Fix Your Mercedes, who says the free play is 1.9 millimeter after pressure. Everybody is within those particular limits. So, and you have to remember, when it's all done, it's all over and done, you're gonna have to do some fine tuning probably over here to get a very smooth idle anyways. So, but let's go ahead and measure and see what I get now, exactly like these other guys. And I'm gonna measure this side, and I'm gonna measure this side. You know, how do you measure? Because this thing's, you know, shaped like this, like a bowl. You know, how are you gonna measure inside and your lips are way over here? Well, all you need to do is put a straight edge in there. And what I did, I went ahead and I have a straight edge that had a hole in it. So I can line that hole up with the edge back there and get it just perfectly. All right? So that's one way that you can measure that, okay? And that's, to me, is going to be the preferred method. I'm not saying any of these guys are wrong or right or anything. I just feel like the manual is telling you, you know, because they're showing you the little picture and they're showing you where you want to look at it. I mean, this picture is for item number 5, which is check your zero position, right? Unfortunately, right there, it says in this position, a clearance of 1 to 2 millimeters should exist when pushing the sensor plate up to the control piston. Okay, but they're not telling you where you actually measure that, you know. You know, I think this is where its interpretation of the manual has nothing to do with anything. And I believe these are going to be close anyways. And you have a whole millimeter anyways to play with. Let's first measure this. So I had previously locked this at the 30.47. Now I'm going to zero that out. And then all you have to do is keep that edge against there, just like you did before, and then bring her down until she stops. So I've got, right now, 0.92. If anything, I would be rich right now, right? So he says anything below or greater than 1.5, you turn the mixture to the right. Well, we're lower, so we have to turn the thing to the left. But I'm not going to do that, because if anything, you know, I'm a little bit rich, right? That's how I read that. See that? And that's when it's starting to touch the piston. So if anything, there's too much fuel. But it acted as if it didn't have enough fuel. I've already put this in here because it takes a little bit of time, right? Because you have to get that just right. And now I'm going to unlock this thing. And we'll see just how much it goes down. And that comes out to 0.57. I will try it again. .54, so pretty close. It's not within the limits according to the manual if this is the proper place to measure. So if anything, guys, you have to admit that it would be rich, if anything. It's not touching the piston, so no fuel should be going in, but is it possibly flooding? I don't really know. So I think the next thing to do because it acted as if it didn't have fuel. And because of that, I think maybe there's air bubbles in here. There's airlock, whatever could happen. We don't know. But you know, I had to take the piston out and all that kind of stuff, so who knows? It's possible. So in order to isolate that and be quite easy is I'm going to loosen all these and then we're going to wrap a towel around here and then we're going to engage the fuel pumps like I said. And no fuel should be coming out. And then when I depress on this, you see that that accumulator holds pressure well. I see a little thing back there. You see that little hair right there? I need to get that out of there. So I'm going to use a piece of painter's tape. There we go. That makes me feel better. All right, so as I was saying, I'm going to take these all off and make sure that there's fuel coming out of all of them when I depress it. Then at least I know fuel delivery is happening. So maybe it's something else, right? And then we'll start investigating the other things, fuel pressure, things like that. We'll figure it out. In order to control the fuel pumps, you know, from outside, because I want to be up there by the fuel distributor, so I can't be reaching in there and turning on and off the key. Also, I don't like to activate the pumps using the key because you're going to be energizing the entire engine compartment, right? So you're having electricity, and fuel and electricity just doesn't mix. So what I wanted to do is make a little relay. This is a relay and a little switch. It's fused, and I have plenty of cable. And this is the wiring diagram that I did. And this is just a Bosch 5-pin, I think they call this a 5-pin relay. This is what goes to the battery. This will go to the negative, and you remove the positive from the fuel pumps. Both fuel pumps remove the positive. You don't want to run what you're going to be running through this back up. You know, you don't want to get to any feedback up to the relay and, you know, through the whole system. You just don't want to do it. So I'm disconnecting that. As far as the negative goes, you can just go ahead and leave the negative. It goes directly to ground anyways. It doesn't matter. But we're going to shorten its path using this, all right, which goes to ground and then up to our relay. And the same thing for the positive. We'll connect the positive leads. And then I can control it off and on. Let's go. So now I have the fuel pumps all connected to my little hand switch. But right below that is a battery. It's on a little cart, and I'm going to connect it to the battery, but we're not going to do that yet. Right now, the battery is actually disconnected from the vehicle, so there's no energy anywhere in the vehicle, and I do not have my wires here connected. So let's talk about additional safety here. This is the top of the fuel distributor. This is the driver's side right here. And you're looking from the inside of the vehicle out towards the front. And currently what I've done is I've put like a ShamWow around here and a bunch of towels and everything else. And it's actually the next day. Because you notice the system held fuel pressure pretty well. As a matter of fact, you know, this can hold for quite a bit because your injectors hold to, let's say, 57 or 60 psi. So these could be energized still. So you want to be careful at this point. I'm wearing goggles and I have all these towels, and I'm going to crack open one of these and see if I have any fuel come out. I like to use this flare nut when I can. On a couple of these you can't, I don't think. This is a 12 millimeter. So far, nothing has come out. As you can see, there's no fuel, so why don't I just continue to remove these. All right, I've got the fuel pumps connected to the battery. I have the fuel injector lines disconnected, and I have this kind of covered for now. And here is my switch. And it's off currently but it's energized. So what I want to do here is energize the pumps, and nothing should come out of here. I'm wearing goggles, you know, and I have a towel in front of me and everything, plus it's all going to absorb. Nothing should come out. I want to also mention that I had to crack a couple of these lines over here, you know, right on the injector side, and there was fuel in there. So I know fuel's being delivered, at least to the ones that I cracked open. But let's go ahead and energize it. Here we go. All right, I don't see anything. That is a good sign. So now I'm going to take this off. All right, so now I'm going to energize. It is, and I'm going to lightly depress. You can see it coming out of this one over here, a couple of them. Looks like I got a couple of them that are clogged, because I can push this all the way down. You see how hardly anything comes out? So that fuel distributor, none of those other injectors are getting any fuel. You can see it coming back down, you know, as it's energized. So those injectors are not getting fuel. I have the pump on. See, it should go like those other ones. So it's just these buns on this side are coming out. That's it. All those other ones are not. This fuel distributor needs rebuild. You know, I might be able to keep doing this and doing it, but I don't think so. You can see there's nothing coming out of that other side. Nothing at all. A good thing was that we didn't, you know, flood the entire system, so that was not the problem. It's just that you can see that it will only come out of those. So that's it. Looks like a fuel distributor rebuild is needed. So now you know why I don't just start turning screws, why I don't flood it with carburetor cleaner or starter fluid. You know, all that would have been dangerous and wouldn't have solved anything. It wouldn't have diagnosed what the real problem is. Your vehicle really should just start up like it did before, every single time. Your car could sit for a week, right? Everything drains back, your oil, all your fuel pressure is relieved, all that happens. But you give it a couple of cranks, maybe 3 seconds, and then she kicks in, it might run a little bit rough and then levels out. That is how it should happen even in a rebuild. It shouldn't take as much trouble as I had during that live stream. So now we've diagnosed at least this so far. You know, we have to get fuel to those injectors, and we know we're not getting fuel to those injectors out of 4 of those ports. So we have 4 ports that's flowing, and I bet you it doesn't look like they're flowing very freely, at least not evenly, but close. And the other 3 of them don't flow at all, and one just trickled a little bit here and there, and that's about it. It never really flowed. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to have to order a kit. It's, like I said early on, it's 115, I think, maybe. I'm not so sure. Today is supposed to be cooler. That's why I got out here, and I got a little bit more done. But it's going right back up, you guys. You know, the plan was not to sit on this past May. I thought we'd have this started in May. That's when things start to get hot around here. It really don't cool down until, you know, really October, to tell you the truth. So I only have little small windows that I can work on, and I'll try to get that fuel distributor out, you know, and if my wife lets me, I'll rebuild it inside the house. But, you know, she's the boss. I don't know if she really wants me to do that. So we'll see. All right, you guys. So for now, we'll just have to wait until the next video. I'll catch you guys on the next one.